Hello, this is Mrs. Ward. I'm going to go over classwork for section 4.5b, working backwards. So the number 4 and 6, they give us the equation with the graph. So if I'm going back to what I did in 4a, I know that this is my A and this is my B. So I know that my amplitude is 2, and to find my period, I would take 2 pi and divide it by my B, which is 3. So I know my period should end up working out to be 2 pi over 3. But in this section, we're not supposed to be looking at the equation. We're supposed to be looking at the graph and see if we can come up with that answer. So just go real quick to find the amplitude. Remember, you take the max. So my max is 2. My min is a negative 2. So to find the first thing I'm going to do is find the midline. So I take the max plus the min divided by 2. So 0 over 2 is 0. So I have this midline of 0. So I'm going to sketch that in there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the max, which is 2 minus 0, and I get 2. So that checks with what I thought it would be based on the equation. The next thing is finding the period. So I know the period should be 2 pi over 3. This is how we're going to find it. I'm going to find the first place, or a place where the graph crosses the midline, goes up, goes down, and then stops at the midline again. So this is one complete period of sine. So I'm going to find the end. If I look at the end, it looks pretty easy. It looks like that is about halfway between this 0 and this pi. So I'm going to call this end pi over 2. That's fairly simple. And then to find the start is here. Well, it's sort of like in the middle here. So I look here, and there's a tick mark here, and there's a tick mark here, and those look like they're about a third of the way. So I'm going to say pi over 3. So I'm going to guesstimate that this one is about halfway between 0 and pi over 3. So I'm going to say that this is pi over 6, but it's negative. So to find the period, I take my my end minus my start. So my end is going to be that negative pi over 6. No, I was right the first time. I take my start minus my end. Start minus my end. So I'm going to take pi over 2, subtract the negative pi over 6. When I do that, I have to have a common denominator. So I'm going to make this 3 pi over 6. This one will end up being plus pi over 6, which gives me 4 pi over 6. And in lowest terms, will give me that 2 pi over 3. So that is how I get my period based off the graph and not just the equation. So now I'm going to do the next one, number 6. To find my amplitude, I'm going to find my max, which looks like my max is 3. My min is a negative 3. So I'm going to take my max plus my min, divide that by 2, so I get 0 over 2. So I'm going to have a midline of 0, so I'm going to sketch that in. Now to find the amplitude, I'm going to take my max and subtract my midline, which is 0, and get 3. Notice that does not match the A, but remember when we said we were going to find the amplitude, it was the absolute value of A. So the absolute value of that negative 3 would be 3. Okay, now to find the period, I'm going to find one complete curve. I'm going to say I start here, I go up, I go down, and hit that midline again. So it looks like the end is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it looks like each tick mark is 1 pi. So this would be 1, 2. This would be 3 pi would be my ends. And then it looks like my beginning is 1, 2, negative 3 pi. So I'm going to take my start, which is positive 3 pi. So I'm going to subtract my end, which is negative 3 pi. And I'm going to end up with 6 pi for my period. To check that, here my B is 1/3. So if I take 2 pi and divide it by 1/3, that would be 2 pi over 1 times 3 over 1, and I do check mathematically that it is 6 pi. Okay, doing number 10, they don't give us an equation, so we're just going to have to look at it. So my amplitude, this A would be a negative 1, so my amplitude is going to be the absolute value of that negative 1, which will just be 1. To find my B is that 2/5. So to find my period, I'm going to take 2 pi and divide it by that 2/5. So that'll be 2 pi over 1 times the reciprocal 5 over 2 negative 5 pi. Okay, moving on to the next one. Next one, you're describing the relationship between f and g. So f is the parent function, f of x is equal to sine of x. The only difference I see between these two equations is that I have this minus pi. I know that it's inside the parentheses, so it's going to be a horizontal shift. So I'm going to shift either to the left or the right. Because it's a minus, it's opposite of what you think, so I'm going to shift right pi units. This is very similar to what we did in Algebra 2. When I look at this next one, my parent function is cosine 2x. The only difference is this negative sign. So a negative sign is going to be some type of reflection. Since it's on the outside, this is going to reflect over the x-axis. So what used to be a positive y is now going to be a negative y. Okay, the next one, number 3 or 4, it says in exercises you're finding the A, the B, the C, and the D based on the graph so that you can write the formula. So we made these bigger for you. So again, you're going to go through that whole process. It looks like first I'm going to start with my mid. I'm going to put my midline in first. So 1, 2, 3. So my max is 3. My min is a negative 3. So to find my midline, I take the average of those two, and I get 0. I do like drawing that in because it does help me out later on. So I'm going to do that. Now to find my amplitude, or my A, I'm going to take my max minus my midline, and I'm going to get 3 for my A. And you might want to highlight that so you don't lose focus of where it is. That's my A. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the period. So to find the period, I'm going to find a place on my graph where I start at my midline, go up, and go down. And there's several places where I do that, but I have to start at the midline and go up. So I'm going to pick this one. I go up, I go down, and then I come here. Now I have to sort of guesstimate what I think that is. So this from here to here is 2 pi. And you cannot see what I'm doing. So, like, I'm going to guess that this would be like halfway. So that would be pi. And if that's pi, then this would be pi over 2. So I'm going to say that my end is pi over 2. And then, oh, I'm sorry, that's my start. No, that's my end. Then to find my start, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to guess that this is about halfway. Very bad line. And then that, so if this is negative pi, then this here would be negative pi over 2. So my start is negative pi over 2. So you take your end minus your start. So I'm going to have negative pi over 2 minus pi over 2, which would be 2 pi over 2, which is just pi. Now that tells me my period, but I need to find my b based on that. So to find my b, remember b is equal to 2 pi divided by the period, which I just said was pi. So my b ends up being 2. Oh, I forgot to tell you your d. This midline is your d. See, sorry about that. So that's my b. Here's my b, and the last thing I need is my c. My C is going to be where my graph starts. So I put this as my start. So to find my C, I'm going to take the x value where my start is. So I said negative pi over 2. And I'm going to multiply that by my b, which is 2. And I'm going to get negative pi. So that is my C. To write the equation, I'm going to say y is equal to d. Well, d is 0. I'll write it. Plus my amplitude, which I said was 3, sine b, which I said was x, so 2x minus, and then my c is a negative pi. So to clean this up, I'm not going to write the 0, 3 sine, and then we have 2x plus pi. And that's the equation for number 65. Okay, doing number 66, my max is 2. my min is -2. So to find my midline or my D, I'm going to end up with 0. So that's my D. To find my amplitude, I'm going to take my max, which is 2, minus my midline, which is 0, and that is 2, and that becomes my letter A. Then, oh, I didn't sketch my midline in there. There's my midline. Then to find the period, I'm going to find a place where the graph starts at the midline, goes up, and goes down, and goes up. Now, I picked this one. You could have picked this one. Your answer might be slightly different, but as long as it's correct, and we know which ones are correct. So if I do this, my end is 4 pi, my start is 0. So 4 pi minus 0 is 4 pi. So that's my period. To find my b, I'm going to take 2 pi and divide it by my period, which is 4 pi, and I end up with a b of 1/2. Then to find my c, I'm going to take my x value where it started at the midline and went up, and you have to go up. And in this case, it's 0 times my b, which is 1/2. Well, 0 times everything is 0. So now my equation is going to be y is equal to my b was 0 plus 2 sine, and then I'm going to write x over 2. And then I can write plus 0 or minus 0, whatever. So y is equal to 2 sine x over 2. Okay, so number 67, I am going to start with a max being 1, the min being a -1. So to find the midline, I take 1 plus -1 divided by 2. So I get 0 divided by 2, so I get 0. Remember, that's my letter E. To find my A, or my max amplitude, I'm going to take 1 minus my midline, and I get 1. So that's my letter A. Then to graph it, to figure out my B and my C, I need one complete curve. So here I'm going to put my midline on. My midline. And then I want to go where it start, and I only have one curve, so I don't have very many choices. I don't have any choices. So there I go. So now I'm going to count. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like there's 6 sections for 2 pi. So 2 pi divided by 6 tells me each one is worth 1/3 pi. So it looks like I end right here at pi over 3. And then it looks like I start right here at, what did I say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 5 pi over 3, because I said each one was a third. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 pi over 3 is 2. Okay. So then to find my period, and that's -5 pi over 3, I'm going to take my pi over 3 and subtract my -5 pi over 3. So I'm taking my end minus my start. When I do all that, I get 6 pi over 3, which is 2 pi. So that is my period. To find my b, I'm going to take 2 pi and divide it by my period, which is also 2 pi, and my b is going to end up being 1. To find my c, I take the x value where I start and go up. So in this case, that's going to be that -5 pi over 3. C is going to equal that -5 pi over 3. That's my x value, and I'm going to multiply it by my b, which is 1. So my c is going to be -5 pi over 3. So to write my equation, I'm going to say y is equal to my d, which is 0, plus my amplitude, which was my a, which was 1 sine, and then b, which is 1, so 1x minus -5 pi over 3. I'm going to clean that up, and my y is equal to sine of x plus 5 pi over 3. And that's the equation. Okay, last one, number 68. I have my graph. It looks like my max is 2. It looks like my min is a -2. So to find that midline, I am going to take the average of those two, and I am going to get 0. To find my amplitude, I'm going to take my max minus my min, and get 2, and that is my letter A. I am going to put that midline on, so my midline again is 0. I'm going to find a place where the graph goes up. Its midline goes up, goes down, and goes up. Now I got to figure out the scale. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 again, each one pi over 3. Okay, so we're going to say that this is negative pi over 3. And this is 1, 2, 3. This is 3 pi over 3. I could write 3 pi over 3 or over, I could write pi, whichever one you want to do. So I'm going to take my start, well, let's just leave it as 3 pi over 3, minus my end, which is a negative pi over 3. And I'm going to get a period of 4 pi over 3. To find my b, I'm going to say b is equal to 2 pi divided by my period, which is 4 pi over 3. So this 2 pi I'm going to think of as over 1. I'm going to switch the division to multiplication, flip this 3 over 4 pi. The pi's will simplify, and the 2 and the 4 will simplify, and I will end up with a b of 3 halves. To find my c, I'm going to take the x value where I start and go up, so that's going to be negative pi over 3. And I'm going to multiply it by my b, which is 3 over 2. So then 3's will simplify and I'll end up with negative pi over 2. To write my equation, I'm going to say y is equal to my b, which is 0, plus 2, which is my a, sine. We have x, because that's my b, minus the negative pi over 2. So when I clean it up, I'm going to have 2 sine, and I can write 3x over 2. Those mean the same thing, plus pi over 2. And that's my final equation, and that is the last one. I hope this helps.